So
over?
close to getting everything done.
Okay. 5:30, Monday, August 11th, and I will call this Joint Animal Services Commission's regular meeting to order. It looks like we are missing some representation. We don't have everyone. However, we only have one vote items later in the agenda, so we'll see if we get somebody by that time. Okay. We'll move on to in the agenda. Looks like we have Commissioner Green, myself. We have Commissioner Klaus's AE with us.
Oh, looks like Commissioner Klaus has joined.
Okay. And who else are we missing?
Currently we are missing Councilmember Agami.
Tomorrow. Okay. Well, let's move on in the agenda, and our next item of business is to approve the agenda and the consent agenda items, and I will need a motion for that.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Seems irregular. However, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously, and we have an approved agenda and have approved our consent agenda items.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, please.
Can you interrupt for one moment?
You may.
It looks like we have a different representative for Thurston County Humane Society. So if we get to a roll call, it might be nice to introduce everybody.
Absolutely. And oh, Michael Murphy.
He's changed. He's changed his hair.
Okay, so yeah, let's do that. Let's just go ahead and do a roll call. Can we start over here?
Yeah, Kelly Green with City of Olympia.
CRT's Animal Welfare and Field Manager for Joint Animal Services.
Becca Cry, Positive Outcomes Coordinator for Joint Animal Services.
Sarah Hawk, Executive Director for Joint Animal Services.
And online?
Barbara Benson, I'm sitting in for Mike Murphy.
And Emily Klaus, Thurston County Commissioner.
AJ May, Commissioner Klaus's Executive Aide.
Shannon Kelly Fong, Assistant City Manager for the City of Lacey.
Malcolm Miller, Deputy Mayor, City of Lacey.
Vicki Smith, Deschutes Animal Clinic Veterinarian.
Joe Pinkook, Feline Friends.
Okay. We've already approved our agenda and consent agenda items. So next we have public comment. Is there anyone wishing to address this commission? Here or online? Okay, seeing none. Were there any written comments to be added to the record?
There were no written comments.
No written comments. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda under business items, we are going to start out with shelter stats and field data for June and July, and our Executive Director, Sarah Hawk.
Give me one moment to share my screen. All right, so this is a reminder for everybody. We have started sharing, we started sharing our shelter statistics and field calls because even though originally our data was part of the consent agenda, with the increased intake and call volume, we felt it necessary that we have these regular conversations about what our intake and outcomes and field calls look like on a regular basis, so we can emphasize the amount of work that animal services staff are doing. So shelter intake thankfully has leveled off a little bit, knock on wood. It was extremely high the first several months. Thankfully, it is somewhat leveled off. It's still higher and still on the rise. But we aren't seeing as drastic increases as we were in the beginning of the year. But with that being said, we're still seeing a large increase in intake overall comparative to last year. And we're still seeing about a 22% increase in dog intake. It is thankfully lowered a little bit. We were over 30% for most of the year. And thankfully that has dropped a little bit and righted itself, but we're still on an overall increase. And we are matching the same numbers this year as cats as we did in 2023 when we had like 5 hoarding cat houses. So keep that in mind. Our overarching increase in intake is still at 78%. That is largely to the increased caseload that we have received with large-scale cruelty intakes, specifically the cockfighting case that we had at the beginning of the year. I'd just like to remind everybody, like, yes, it seems really large. Overall, if you're just looking at dogs and cats, it's still around 25 to 30% increase. But overall, the amount of animals that are coming through our door is much larger. Thurston County is still holding at 61% of our entire intake, followed by Olympia, then Lacey, and Tumwater of the 4 jurisdictions in the interlocal agreement. Thankfully, even though intake continues to rise, so do our positive outcomes. So adoptions are at an all-time high. We haven't seen these adoption numbers since pre-pandemic. So we continue to go up, which is a really fantastic news. Transfer is up this year. And return to owner has actually stayed pretty static through the last several years. And I would really contribute that to the fact that besides our coordinated entry system that we do for intake, it's really the lost and found efforts that we're doing to make sure that animals stay out of the shelter. So really asking community members and having the Lost and Found Facebook group do a lot of the work for us so dogs aren't entering in. And that's what I contribute to that kind of static lower return to owner number is they're not entering in, they're finding their homes back to home before they even enter the shelter.
I have a question.
Yes.
So it looks like we're up 20% just year to date over previous years with, does that make sense? Like
For
just
positive outcomes?
Yeah, for these outcomes, so.
Yeah,
And we're haven't yet to make it through Q3.
correct.
Wow, amazing work, Becca.
So Becca is definitely working hard for those positive outcomes. Adoptions have been up.
The adoptions team is rocking it.
The adoptions team is rocking it, and I also contribute the ability to do a lot of waived adoption events when we're full, contributing to that as well. Being able to have that kind of release valve when we're full to be like, and we're having a fee waived event to help keep animals moving out, I think has also been extremely helpful when that happens. Field calls continue to be up month over month. We have an overall increase of 18.34% in calls. We're going to do a bit of a deeper dive with Sierra in a little bit of what some of her calls have looked like this year. Calls by jurisdiction, it has shifted a little bit. So Thurston County is about 44% of our field calls currently, with Olympia, Lacey, and then Tumwater. Tumwater has actually seen the largest percentage increase in field calls this year of the 4 jurisdictions, followed by Thurston County, and Olympia and Lacey are about even with their increase in call volume. And that is shelter statistics.
What was Tumwater on that last statistic, percentage wise?
9%.
28%. Oh, 9% overall.
Yep.
Yeah, 9% overall.
Has anybody heard from you? Member got it?
That's it for shelter statistics.
Well, good work. I mean, it's a lot, moving out, over these past, I guess it's only been 7 months and a few days. So with another, what's 4.5 months left?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do winter's numbers kind of
I mean, historically,
winters?
that's been part of the issue is historically we do have a quote unquote slower season. And that's usually the colder months. it starts to slow, November, December, with our slowest being January, February. And part of the issue that happened this year was there was no slow season. Um, we have been consistently full since January. Um, we usually use January and February as a reset for the staff too. It's usually when we have empty kennels, we can work on projects. We can get ourselves ready with any programming that we need to kind of change or shift, for the upcoming busy season, but that just didn't happen. Which is why I think too, you saw like the percentages were so much higher in January when we're pushing almost a 40% intake increase. It's easy to do when you normally only have, 60 dogs come in, but instead we had 100. And that significantly changes the workload.
All right, well, let's move on to our positive outcomes update. Becca. Animal welfare and positive outcomes coordinator.
Boy, do I have an update.
It's coming.
Hey, thank you. So, as Executive Director Sarah Hawk shared, our positive outcomes have increased in the year of 2025, and it's been a lovely thing to see. I'm very proud of my programming. I'm proud of the staff at JAS. It's all, a collective effort. So with more positive outcomes comes more life-saving. As you saw in our statistics this year, more is everything. There's more of all of it. Cat intake is up, dog intake is up, and especially this busy season, this breeding season, all of our, the biggest of our foster needs during this time of year is underage cats and kittens. So the intake of kittens aged between 0 and 6 months has increased by 63%, which is crazy. And between the kittens between 0 and 2 months, it's been 31.5%. So that's where our most vulnerable populations are, and those are what we're getting out into foster the most. We've also had an extreme increase of intake in puppies. And puppies are very fun to foster for 3 days. And then more often than not, they get really cumbersome and gross and poopy. So thank you to the foster homes that are just exceedingly patient. Since our last check-in, since the last time I was here, we've implemented a few things. We now have on-site foster orientations. So instead of just having orientations online, foster homes that feel they need a little bit more info and a little bit more guidance can come and have a more extensive orientation and also get a tour of the shelter. I find them being able to see behind the scenes and the reality that we are dealing with helps them make a connection when I'm listing animals for foster. They have seen the kennels, they have seen how many staff members we have and what we're working with. So on-site foster orientations have been a game changer as far as our program goes. We've also been able to increase wellness exams and veterinary care capacity. So our foster animals are getting, there's just more access and more flexibility for our foster homes. And we have more training materials, more protocol handouts, and that's all very helpful.
I will add too, Becca opened up the foster orientations to current fosters, because we did have a lot sign up during the pandemic who have never actually, have been active fosters who have never actually like come in and received a tour and or just met Becca briefly at the car to pick up. And so we opened those to active current volunteers, and several took us up on the in-person orientations for fosters to kind of reconnect and see the shelter.
And this is all midweek workday,
On Saturdays and Tuesdays.
Saturdays and Tuesdays.
And I have 2 to 3 on-site orientations a month, depending on what's going on at the shelter, and how busy we are, but it's typically around 2 to 3 orientations a month. So another thing that we've seen, given just our increase in intake and also just trying to increase accessibility to our program, we've seen an increase in animals going to foster, which is wonderful. It's what we need. 44% increase in cats going to foster and a very impressive 61% increase in dogs. I think especially the dogs getting into foster, I think it's a very noteworthy shift in the culture of our foster program. We've been able to create a lot of transparency and honesty in our program, and I think that's shifted the level of engagement within our foster homes. They see the need and they're trying to fill it. So that's been really wonderful to see. Transfers are up, yay. From 2023 to 2024, we had a dip in transfers, but from 2024 to 2025, we have seen an increase. And big thank you to those rescue partners down there. They have been the most consistent in our partners in taking animals. And yeah, especially getting dogs out. Any live outcome we can get for any animals is wonderful, but especially getting dogs out of the shelter is a huge thing.
So just so I'm fully understanding, when you say transfer, you're saying from one entity to another?
Yes. Mhm.
Someone within an established network that we have.
Yes.
So maybe we transfer to Tacoma or Centralia or
Mhm.
Mason County or whatever.
And I've transferred a few to Joe at Feline Friends.
It's usually, for example, Seattle Humane would be what we consider like a destination shelter, meaning all of their intake is through transfers from other organizations. We would be considered a source shelter, being that we're a municipality. We have limitations to what we can say no to or when we can say no, right? And so we can never stop that flow. But there are other shelters that can and do and choose to how they intake animals. Sometimes it's through owner surrenders, but a lot of the shelters choose to do the majority of theirs by helping other shelters out, whether it's in-state, sometimes it's out of state as well, in higher euthanasia areas. But that is usually like their source shelters that they're usually limited intake. That's their whole mission, is to help other shelters and alleviate those issues, and they get those animals adopted out on. So we transfer to them and then they do the adoption.
Gotcha.
Also, I would like to add that all times our victim animals from cruelty cases are transferred out to protect them along the process. So they can go and be adopted out by the family, and whereas like when, like I can tell you the most recent case we have that's still active, when that animal becomes our custody, it will not be adopted out through Joint Animal Services. It'll be, Becca will work on getting that animal transferred out.
And I think another big change from last year to this year is that we have created routine transfers. It used to be that when we became really full, or if we had animals that specifically needed rescue placement for a variety of reasons, I would be sending out emails to all of our partners asking for help. Seattle Humane Society, we have set up every other week a routine transfer of animals where they will routinely take at least three dogs and sometimes cats. So that happens every 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks with Humane Society of Mason County, they take upwards of 5 to 10 kittens. And so it's been having routine transfers and knowing that we can expect empty kennels at certain times of the month is very helpful in scheduling intake and dealing with if we have a large intake that we're doing. So
And we drive them up.
Mason County and either a volunteer or myself, we take turns. And then Seattle Humane Society, it's either myself or a volunteer. More often than not, I'm able to find volunteers to drive, but sometimes if they're taking a lot of animals, it's hard to fit, 5 dogs in an SUV. So it'll be me and one of our vans just driving up. So, yeah, any other questions in regards to that? Okay. And just to end on a really fun note, I think another way that we can tell that there is a culture shift happening, not just within our foster program, but just in our volunteers and in our community as a whole. I received a lovely email from one of our fosters, Nicole Kernett, and this is her daughter Ellie, and this is the second year that they have hosted a shelter drive for us since they've been participating in the program. And so this is the email that I received along with the pictures here. She said, "Hi, I just want to say thank you and share what a positive experience fostering has been for my daughter Ellie. Fostering kittens from Joint Animal Services has truly helped grow her confidence, taught her responsibility and compassion, and deepened her passion for helping animals. She just completed a supply drive and we dropped off the donations today. I've attached a couple of pictures to share the moment. Thank you for the opportunity to foster and for all you do to help and care for these amazing animals. We're so grateful for your support, flexibility, and the incredible work you do. Ellie now wants to volunteer inside the shelter as well. We're hoping to make that happen in August. And that number has since gone up. They just returned 7 kittens and took 5 more. So math is closer to about 40 cats and kittens that the Kernut family has fostered now. And they actually only just started fostering in March. So
That's amazing.
it's amazing. And yeah, that's what I have to share. I'm very proud of my fosters. I'm proud of the program, and I'm proud of everything we've done to see this shift.
Is there a limit to how many they can have at one time?
We do. We do.
Thanks the question, you got.
One foster group, because cross-contamination, we never know if kittens are going to end up being sick and if they have multiple litters in their home, you know, and we can't monitor how careful we're being with washing our hands in between and that kind of thing. So we do limit to 1 foster group at a time. So yeah, they've had cats and kittens in their house nonstop. They drop some off, they take some home. It's pretty incredible.
Great.
Yeah.
And I do actually want to highlight, Nicole and her daughter are actually watching JASCOM right now. So
Is the design to
Thank you, Nicole.
get these kittens or cats through a developmental stage? Is that what
Yes.
the design is?
More often than not, they are underage for surgery. So they either have a mom and they're nursing, or they're kind of in that in-between stage where they're eating on their own, but they're just not quite big enough to handle surgery. Or sometimes we send them really spicy kittens that are very afraid of humans and try to pretend like they're mountain lions. And then it's their job to socialize them and help them see that humans are great, and they'll give them wet food and, you know, get them ready for adoption that way too. I also too want to say it's an extended family affair too, because Nicole's sister Tamara initially started fostering with us. And so, and then Tamara told Nicole, hey, I'm having a lot of fun here. And so there's an extended Kernut family in our foster program, so.
So what, they come back at like 8 weeks, 10 weeks?
it's, the goal, so for surgery, the doctor needs them to be 2 pounds. They can sometimes go a little under that, so really the goal, besides being socialized, so they're happy, friendly kittens, it's really making sure they're of weight to make it through surgery.
And then are we funding food too?
Yep. We make sure, fosters do also pitch in, but we have our own foster pantry that has supplies that they can come and pick up whenever they need more, whether it's litter or food. They can request special stuff from Becca. It all depends.
They're doing us a service by taking these animals into their homes, so we want to provide them with as much as we can, so.
It's an innovative way to keep the system running.
Yeah.
It's costly otherwise to be a foster. So this is one way that we can help kind of lower that burden from a cost perspective for them.
Everybody carry a little bit of water. and
Mm-hmm.
get that.
Well, thanks, Nicole and Ellie.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very much.
Is that the end of your?
That's it.
Okay, moving on, we have a field update from Sierra. Hi, Sierra.
Hi, now that Becca's lifted your spirits, I'm here to tear them down. Maybe we should have.
You're there to take care of those cats.
So sorry. We're going to
You get to deliver the bad news. How's that?
Scroll down.
thank you.
Nature of the role.
There we go.
Then you
One
just-
too many PowerPoints going on today. They think
Maybe, no, my job typically, it's kind of the. Whoop. Hey, hi everyone. Field update, JASCOM, August, Sierra, nice to see all of you. I'm gonna see if I can work this and okay. So I'm just here to give you all a little bit of a briefing of how summer's going for field. So since May, field team has investigated over 240 reports of welfare and cruelty. A lot of those are dog and hot car calls. So And this is in addition to all of our other investigations that we're working. We have seen an unprecedented amount of first and second degree charges this summer. So you saw this puppy in our last slideshow. This is who we affectionately called Lazarus. He was later named Espresso. So in July, we assisted Nisqually PD with 2 dogs who were exposed to drugs. We assisted Nisqually PD in their investigation, and my understanding is that second degree charges will be referred for exposure to narcotics. Before that, we investigated a case for an emaciated bearded dragon. The animal is now safe and second degree charges will be referred. First degree. So in June, we assisted Tumwater with a case for 2 very emaciated animals. Tumwater will be the ones referring the charges for this case for a first degree on both of those animals. In June, we investigated a case of 2 emaciated dogs, one with severe injuries. Unfortunately, both dogs were euthanized due to severe medical. First degree charges will be referred. In July, we investigated a case for 2 dogs found deceased in a crate outside of a home. First degree charges will be referred. Again, in July, we investigated a case for a small dog beaten with a cane and hospitalized. That's our Murphy here. First degree charges they have been referred at this point. We're waiting for them to be filed. Again, in July, we investigated a case for a dog and car. The animal was found deceased upon arrival. First degree charges will be referred. This video was posted online. If anybody saw, it was for a large bulldog type. Yes.
Can you share with the committee, the difference between like first degree and second degree charges?
First degree is felony. And so I could have had the RCW there for you, but essentially, it means any type of intentional, purposeful dehydration, starvation, neglect that results in severe and extended pain and suffering or death. Second degree is really any of those elements not amounting to first degree. So death in those cases. Dr. Smith is someone who we obviously work close with on these cases. So when we're busy, she's busy. So how dare she go on a trip to Scotland over the summer?
Sorry.
Because of course we had a case. Fortunately, we also work closely with a forensic pathologist, Ledrock Pathology, and so they were able to help in the case for our dog and hot car as well. So,
I'm back now for a while.
and now Dr. Smith is back. So we typically will only have like really in the past like a few first degree felony cases, but just this summer this is 5, and this may not even be up to date with what we're working with at this point. So field has been extremely busy this summer.
So this would be kind of a record caseload at this moment?
It sure feels that way, yes. And so these cases up here are cases that have been referred or filed with the prosecutor's office. So of course we have Blanca's, the 600 animals that included the cockfighting case. And then I won't list you all those names, but these are, most of these are first degree charges. We have a couple misdemeanors in there. But these are also cases that are great new DPA is handling. So I'm really thankful for the relationship that we have with her, and I'm hopeful that we can see some justice with these cases.
But these are 11 cases that we're actively monitoring in court on top of.
In addition to the 5
In
and the
addition
1.
to in addition to the 5 first degree and the 2 second degree. So actively, just in the last couple of months, have done 7.
I
Feels
don't
like more, but maybe
Yeah,
7.
and to be honest, there's not a way for me to, I don't have an outcome in our reports like felony charge, like it's referred to prosecutors. So I don't have a great way. So there are likely more cases in this, and not all of these are cases that we personally referred charges on, but they are cases that we're the ones working with the DPA on to come up with resolutions. And also for all of these cases, either myself or my team appear to all of those hearings so that we stay updated.
So these all fall in our jurisdiction.
These are all Thurston
These
County,
are all
yes.
Thurston County. So it's not like, oh, we went to, like when we went to go help Mason County and we're tracking that too, or.
I mean, I do track that. I do go to
Tracking
every
that
single
one
Are
too.
these numbers?
That is not part
No.
of these numbers.
These are all ones where we have either referred charges or law enforcement has referred charges, but we were subject matter experts on the case. We're the ones following. And we're the ones that will most likely have to give testimony and defend those referral charges.
Got it.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about potentially dangerous and dangerous dog, and the difference there, right? So potentially dangerous dog, and I also want to just say, everything that falls within this is unprovoked, and each jurisdiction may determine what unprovoked looks like to them. For our agency, unprovoked typically is going to mean that without that physical intervention by that person, that bite would not have occurred. It doesn't mean that it was necessarily not going, right? There's a little bit of nuance there. I just want to make that clear. So we have our definition here. So inflicts a bite.
You might want to go into a little bit more detail with unprovoked versus provoked. So like an example might be, like a provoked bite would be somebody trespasses onto somebody's property. Instigating a reaction from the dog, and that person who trespasses was bitten. That might be an instance, and I say might because there's always some other details, but that might be an instance, for example, that it was provoked and that dog would not have a designation, right?
Provoked can also mean, my dog was eating his food and my 8-year-old stuck his hand in the bowl. That's a provoked bite.
Okay.
Why this word is also important is whenever we're considering rabies exposure, provoked and unprovoked is very important. If you are just sitting in a room and a dog that's in your home just comes to you out of nowhere and starts attacking you, that is unprovoked, and we may be concerned about a potential virus there. So unprovoked may also have to do with, guarding territory, like Sarah was talking about, coming onto the property. That is provoked. So
Unprovoked might be a dog seeing somebody walk down the street, but it's off their property and they physically like break out of whatever containment they have to go physically bite somebody off of their property.
Totally unprovoked.
So
Got it.
So unprovoked and inflicts a bite or bites a human or pet domestic animal either on public or private property, may chase or approach a person in the streets in a menacing manner, or has a known propensity to attack unprovoked. So if we have previous cases where something has been documented where someone was menaced, we can go and escalate that to a potentially dangerous dog at a following report. This being said, what's also important to note is these designations must be observed either by an officer or made available through supported evidence or statements. It can't just be hearsay. So we have to have statement or some type of evidence to move forward with the designation.
So we're looking for a police report.
or us, or like an actual statement from somebody who was there, not a neighbor 3 doors down who.
Heard something may have happened, but it's just a statement of perjury of law. This is what I saw. This is the animal that did it. Here's why I know this animal did
Absolutely,
it.
prima facie.
And this is because we're protecting people's rights, right? Dangerous dog. When we talk about dangerous dog, inflict severe bodily injury. And we have our definition somewhere there, but essentially severe bodily injury is tearing into muscle, fatty tissue, multiple sutures, broken bones. There was a case recently where a Rottweiler attacked a child and almost no lacerations, but the arm was broken. That's a dangerous dog. Without provocation, of course. Killed a pet domestic animal without provocation off the owner's property. So husky escapes property, goes into neighbor's yard, gets in a chicken coop, kills chickens, because chickens are pet animals, right? Dangerous dog. Cat comes on to owner's property, enters a dog's yard, dog kills cat, not dangerous dog. Aggressively bitten, attacked, or endangered safety of humans or pets, domestic animals after previously being found potentially dangerous. So again, that escalation route. So if we continue to get reports, your dog can be declared dangerous that way as well.
Is it 2? Still 2? Or the
It-
second?
It depends. It's not a guarantee. It depends on severity of bite, like if there's a history. Just because a dog has been declared potentially dangerous does not mean it's gonna get escalated unless it meets certain criteria. I would also say, just to really for severe injury, we're talking about surgical interventions, sutures, plastic surgery, broken bones. A dog biting your arm and giving you puncture wounds is not considered severe.
Got it.
That would be like a bite or an injury, but it is not a severe injury.
So medical attention.
But yeah, and severe bodily injuries.
Not even medical, because you can go to the urgent care for those bites. You want them
Yeah,
cleaned
true.
out.
And it can also depend where you're bitten as well, and children as well, they're more likely to give children sutures rather than adults. So there is nuance there as well, and we try to be understanding of that, but
Did you see a Rottweiler broke a bone without puncturing the skin?
Yeah.
tiny little puncture, like barely a puncture. So that's why we have that definition in there, because there may be no punctures and no sutures and no surgery, but a child is still severely injured. So when we talk about the investigation, so we were talking about statements. It begins when the reporting party contacts the shelters to submit a statement or the observed violation. They must submit a statement under perjury of law for us to take action. And then also include any relevant evidence. What we are so fortunate of in this time is a lot of people have ring door cameras. So we'll ask for those. If the neighbor doesn't have any, we may do some canvassing to see if anybody does have any and collect that information. After that started, an FSO is assigned to the case. They make contact with the reporting party to get their verbal version of events, ask them any questions. The FSO will then speak to witnesses, involved party, collect statements, make contact with the violator or animal owner to discuss their version of events. Also included in this timeline, if there is a bite to the person where there is a break in skin, there will also be a rabies quarantine as well. The FSO will use all the collected information and previous history in determining the outcome of the case. The violator or animal owner will be notified and provided appropriate paperwork. So when there is a potentially dangerous dog designation or a dangerous dog designation, they have a notice at the time when that designation is made, and then for a dangerous dog, they have 7 days to comply. They may also submit the request for appeal to Sarah should they disagree with that.
That's coming up. I moved it to a different section. It's coming up.
Okay. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so, and then we go out and do the inspection, right? On dangerous dogs.
Yeah, at the 7 days, we do the inspection, so they must meet all the criteria for owning a dangerous dog, and they may also choose to rehome the dog to an individual who's able to comply, rehome the dog out of state where the designation does not follow, or surrender the dog for euthanasia. So they have options regarding complying with that.
In all the jurisdictions that we contract with to house a dangerous dog, they have to either stay inside or be placed in a 6-sided kennel. So solid bottom on the top. They cannot leave without a muzzle. They must carry higher insurance and they have to show us proof of insurance. And they also have to register their dog as dangerous with us.
So this is rehome in state? Or
This is if they decide to keep. If they rehome it in
Keep.
state, that designation follows that dog
Okay.
in this state.
So 6-sided kennel.
But not all counties or jurisdictions have the same requirements. So in some counties and cities, if your dog is deemed dangerous, it's an automatic surrender for euthanasia. Like they are not allowed.
They don't allow
to.
dangerous dogs in their county, so they're.
You can either move with your dog to a county that allows it or surrender it for euthanasia.
We have nearby counties who allow 2 years.
I mean, we allow dangerous dogs. They can house under those parameters, but City of Seattle does not. And King County just changed theirs to allow, it's very similar language to ours. There's some differences, but it's very similar.
I have a quick question. Speaking of jurisdictions, I noticed that the definitions are pursuant to the Lacey Municipal Code. Is that applicable in other jurisdictions in the county, or does each one have its own unique language?
For potentially dangerous and dangerous, they almost all mirror each other pretty identical. There's like a little bit of verbiage that's different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but it's essentially all the same.
Okay.
The steps are essentially the same. there's some tweaking. Like Thurston County, your code allows for a review in person. And we'll get to that, whereas the other jurisdictions, you don't necessarily have to have a review of that designation in person.
Okay.
There's some small differences, but the actual like definitions and what is considered potentially dangerous versus dangerous, provoked and unprovoked are all the same.
Okay, thank you.
Now, considerations for outcome results, the assigned officer will take the following circumstances into consideration. What is a desired outcome of the reporting party? Is this a first offense involving the animal and the owner? Was the animal provoked and was the response reasonable? Sometimes when we look at these cases, it could be considered provoked, but is it reasonable, right? So I don't know the circumstance of the child that was bitten by the Rottweiler, but if the child had, stuck his hand in the dog's food bowl, it's provoked, right? But breaking a child's arm is not a reasonable response. Where did the incident take place? Is there enough evidence to support the claim? Because sometimes there's not. Even though they're pretty sure what happened, they don't technically have any evidence that the animals they think were involved were actually involved. What is in the best interest of all involved parties while also prioritizing public safety?
And we can't really interrogate the animals, can we?
No, I tried and they don't speak.
And sometimes it's hard, right? Like you're in the heat of the moment. What your memory is of the situation can sometimes be different. You may not see what happened, but you hear what happened and you see dogs leaving your property and you have injured animals on your property. There's a lot of circumstances involved that we have to look at.
Yeah, and the reason why that's important is this is, the livelihood of animals, of people, of officer integrity on the line. And if there's not enough evidence to say this happened this way, we can't proceed with the designation.
Sure.
So the assigned officer may complete an investigation with any of the following results, and it can also be in conjunction with one another. Sometimes it's record only. They called and then they never submitted a statement, provided photos, wanted the case to move further. Education and verbal warning. If it is a first offense and it was minor, that's the route we're going to take because we are an engagement first agency. Written warning. So we have what's called a potentially dangerous dog warning, which is a written notice saying, hey, I'm letting you know these are all the stipulations that you may be required if future designations are made. And this is written down so that next time when I get a report and we do a PDD, you understood what was expected. Potentially dangerous dog designation, a dangerous dog designation, referral of misdemeanor charges for injury to a person. We can pursue that as well, depending on the scenario. Referral of misdemeanor charges for violation of potentially dangerous and dangerous dog regulation. So if we declare a dog dangerous and they don't meet those requirements, or that dog is at large, we can pursue misdemeanor charges as well. We can also pursue felony charges sometimes for injury to a person. However, that gets tricky with the verbiage in the RCW, but it is something we can do for especially egregious circumstances.
I have a question. Because you triggered one.
Mm-hmm.
You said if that dog is at large.
Mm-hmm.
How many animals do you think we have at large?
So I understand. If you were or your family was a victim of a crime that occurred involving an animal, you're probably going to know when that animal is at large, and you're going to call it in as a dangerous dog at large. So it doesn't sound, if you were living in Seattle, that might be a little bit harder here, but I can tell you my officers know their cases pretty well. And so when they call out and they say, there's this one dog that we did potentially dangerous, I think it was a small dog, like a Chihuahua, actually, and we're like, she's out again, I'm on the way, and they're booking it there. So the community knows these animals pretty well. So I know it sounds a little bit far reaching that we would know, but it happens more often than not.
Okay. And then I guess we have strays,
Mm-hmm.
right? What do you think our stray population is?
Well, I can tell you that half of our overall calls, just under about 46% of our field calls are stray calls.
Okay.
A lot of those could be repeat offenders, but yeah, it is. There are a lot of stray animals, so.
I have a question on the stipulations that could be put on a dangerous dog. Is that then for the life of the animal?
Yes. Yes. So, which is to say that when we make these designations, it is because we strongly believe in the designation that, we've reached. And we also understand that when these animals come into our care with these designations, that the outcome is euthanasia. So we need to, that's the point there, right? What is in the best interest of all involved parties while also prioritizing public safety? I want to understand people and give them grace, but also understand that our job's ensuring public safety.
So there's no like rehab or drug court or?
Nope.
No, unfortunately, no.
There are, if you want to click to the next slide, there are ways that people can object to the declaration. So there is due process. The complaining party or the victim can also request this. Like if they feel, for example, let's say we felt that the bite met a potentially dangerous dog designation. The complaining party can actually say, I object and I would like you to review this case. I think the dog should be declared dangerous. These are the reasons.
Yeah, we had that a couple months ago.
Vice versa,
Yeah.
the dog owner could say, hey, I disagree with this designation. I don't believe that my dog is considered dangerous. I would like you to, reduce it down to a potentially dangerous dog or even potentially dangerous dog reduced to a warning. And so the first step with that is they have 10 days to submit a request for review with me, the director. For me to review the case as a whole, they have an option for that review to happen in person. If that is the case. And when it is in person, and even when it's not, usually it's the field officer going over the investigation, showing me photos, showing me all the evidence that they have collected to say this is why I've made the decision for either a PDD or a DD. And so after I review all of those facts, allow for all the information to come in, that I make my decision based on that information. If either the complaining party or, do you want to hit the next slide for me, please? So after this, they can also, one more. If they don't like the decision that I made, or the director, I should say, then they have the opportunity within 10 days to appeal my decision or the director's decision to the Lacey Hearings Examiner by submitting that request to me. And then I will set up a hearing for said parties for review from an official standpoint.
So a hearings examiner review at whose cost?
Great question.
Because they're not cheap,
No,
not free. We all know that.
And I think one thing just to highlight too, Sarah, is that it's for all of the jurisdictions, it's the City of Lacey's hearing examiner as well. It doesn't go to individual hearing examiners for like Olympia or Thurston County or Tumwater.
it's been written into the code since 1996 that it's the Lacey Hearings Examiner for all 4 jurisdictions.
Contracted with Lacey.
Thanks, Lacey.
The issue becomes that that portion is so infrequent. Sometimes everybody forgets that that's written into their code as part of the process. So those are like, so there are outcomes if you don't feel that we made the correct judgment in that case. So there are appeals processes in place, but most likely we made that designation for a reason. It's very rare. It's very rare for usually those to change, but usually sometimes some information pops up. They can get really interesting. I have learned a lot thanks to our legal team about like land, and just because like somebody thinks they're trespassing, are they really, if everybody uses that property as a cut through, does it now become like that portion becomes public property? So it can get really, I know more about that stuff than I ever thought I would know. So
Yeah, Higgs Lake.
I think that,
Oh, okay,
Last
so,
slide.
yeah, we have our graph here. Obviously counties leading 65, For PDD, 48 for DD. Lacey is down here at 18 for PDD and 8 for DD. Tumwater, 6 and 5. Olympia has 20 PDD and only 3 DD, and then our little Yelm here with 3 PDD and 1 DD.
That this year?
No, this is what we have actively in our system.
Got it.
So this probably goes back like,
It goes back to 2021, when we changed shelter management software. Keep in mind too, that, a lot of owners, you know, for better or worse, are making decisions. And so the dangerous dog designations are probably lower than cases we've actually investigated, because a lot of people opt to surrender their dog for euthanasia specifically before their dog is declared dangerous.
so they kind of knew going in. Can I,
Okay.
do you mind if I,
Yeah, go for it.
you? 18.
Yes.
And for county, we would not have gone on any of those calls prior to us becoming full service. So county's numbers are only going to be till 2022 when we went to full service. Because before that, it was up to the Board of County Commissioners holding a hearing of whether or not they were going to designate a dog dangerous. You're welcome.
Questions?
Right?
So looking at these numbers, how many would you say, do you investigate in a year versus in an average year versus how many end up with one of these designations?
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a little bit challenging to pull those reports because this designation can be the result of any number of types of reports. So it could be called in as menacing, it could be called in as a bite to a person, it could be called in as a bite to a dog. Like there's a variety of what that would be, so it's kind of hard to determine the amount of cases that we worked that then resulted in that.
But just in your estimation, like, are you getting a new one at least every month?
Oh, for sure.
At least,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, I mean, our,
Oh, for sure.
like, and cases that would result anywhere from, you know, education to the most extreme dangerous dog designation, like my officers have probably 5 to 10 at any time.
Okay.
Of cases that they're working.
Whether or not that designation is made is different, but
So maybe to kind of the question too, are we seeing an increase comparative to a couple of years ago, or is it pretty steady as part of kind of the dangerous dog, potentially dangerous dogs?
I would say for designations, yes.
yeah.
Just with having a full team and having a trained team on doing these investigations, there has been an increase, as well as just population growth, I think.
So more resources, more people,
Mhm.
more animals, more work getting
More
done.
people reporting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, like the more people reporting too, like not to tie it back to the county, but they went without service for so long, and that was one of the calls. And so I do think we see more in the county now simply because people know that they can call and that something is going to be done. And usually when we are going on calls in the county, we are finding that, yes, this may be the first time they're reporting, and so we're actively only investigating this call. But it usually will lead to like, well, this dog has also attacked so-and-so's chickens, but no one reported it because they didn't know
So-
until now.
Can we just talk for 1 minute about when you pull up on scene to investigate a
Mhm.
dangerous, it might be considered a dangerous animal. What's that look like for you guys and your team?
As far as like the investigation process? Or-
As far as there could be some risky animal running around and here you come, you're hopping out of the car, are you concerned, is there safety
I would
concern?
say, my understanding, most of our potentially dangerous or dangerous dogs are dogs that are public safety risks to other animals. I come from a place where that is not accurate, that they truly are animals that are a huge safety risk to humans. So, but You operate differently based on the region you're in. When I first moved here, you know, I was like, why are officers not having their catch pole out of their van every single time? It baffled me, but it's because they don't need to. And also if they're coming out of their vehicles, you know, up in arms, they're going to solicit a response from an animal that you otherwise would not have likely have seen. So they're researching the properties before they go out, right? That's the first thing. We're gonna research to see what is the risk for the humans that are living there, and then the animals as well. So if they know that these animals may have a disposition to being aggressive towards humans, they should be exiting the vehicles with their catch pole in their hand and their tactical gloves on, right? But then it's also, how is that perceived to the animal owner? I can tell you, if an animal control officer showed up to my door in full gear, I would be offended. You know, so it's ensuring that we're presenting ourselves and as community members and being there for the community, and then taking safety measures whenever it's appropriate.
Okay, so step number one, de-escalate the situation just in your appearance.
And it's very rare that we get there like fresh after an attack, right? Like usually in the moment, everybody's handling stuff. That dog owner has usually already removed said animal. The victim has been taken to urgent care or to a veterinary clinic, and now they're calling, right? Usually in the heat of the moment calls we're getting are from first responders who are actively responding because they're out there giving medical attention, or sometimes TCSO is called first. And usually, but by that time, things have usually been de-escalated a little bit. We're not actively coming on to a scene usually where like a dog is actively attacking somebody, like,
And we do have there are certain, you know, policies that we have in place that may be different based on your agency. I know other agencies or animal control, if the gate's not locked, they'll enter. My officers don't do that, because if there's a dog hiding somewhere and they get bit, that's provoked. And we're not touching that. So if there's any type of barrier, we leave a notice and we'll return and follow up that way.
All right, are we?
I have a question.
please.
For dog owners who may be concerned about their dog's behavior and want to prevent something from happening proactively. I've actually had some people ask me recently, about trainers that can help, and it doesn't, and I don't know if this is the case, but at first glance, it appears that like a lot of dog behavioral trainers, they don't deal with dogs who might be aggressive towards people. Is that?
it depends. I can't really speak for this area. There are behaviors who can specialize in that, but I will say you have to be very careful. There's a lot of people out there who claim to be trainers and who claim to be behaviorists who don't actually have the certifications or trainings to back them up. And that is something that you absolutely have to look for. And the biggest red flag for me is anybody who's a trainer that says, I will take your dog and your dog needs to come live with me and then I give it back to you trained.
Yeah.
No. Don't. But there are certifications, there's questions you can ask about the style of training. Different styles can be effective depending on what you're looking for. I usually always want to promote starting with positive reinforcement training. And for all the naysayers out there that positive reinforcement training is just giving dogs treats, it's not. It's about positive reinforcement can come in many different fashions. It's about adding something positive to the experience that they associate with. So if that dog loves playing with a toy, if that dog loves a treat, you know, what does that dog love? Is it playtime for a few minutes when they get something right? There are many facets to that that don't include just a consistent rewardment of treats. You find what the dog is motivated for and you work with that, and that becomes the positive reinforcement. With that being said, there are some negative reinforcements that aren't bad, but you need to be careful with that because negative reinforcements or negative punishments can also entail like shock collars as training. And you want to make sure that you're not masking behaviors. A lot of people don't understand that growling, barking, all of those behaviors that we deem aggressive are our warning system, right? So if we train them not to respond, you're going to have a dog that does not give you any warning before it bites. And so that's not what we're looking for. Barking and growling is not bad. That's how they are communicating that they are uncomfortable. And a lot of people make that mistake and get that confused. So you can be, you have to be very diligent. If you have some people in mind, like I can email you some resources to look at. I can't necessarily recommend one specific because then I can't play favorites in this scenario, but I can tell you what to look for.
Okay, that would be helpful. Cause yeah, I know that there are trainers out there that don't really have the certifications or qualifications they need, and so I don't wanna point people in the wrong direction if they ask. So that would be really helpful to just have some examples.
And anytime somebody says anything about being an alpha or being dominant, just like don't.
Yeah. And also tell them to ask their vet, because we have a lot of resources and, you know, I have a pipeline for
Absolutely.
trainers I use all the time for stuff like that.
Okay.
And for easy stuff, I know it sounds like silly, but from having worked at PetSmart Charities, PetSmart actually has a positive reinforcement, like basic obedience training. So for anybody who just wants basic obedience, it's really great because it's really transparent, because you're literally training the dogs in the store. So like you can't hide anything. And they have, because it's corporate, what I will say is they have parameters that like they have to agree to because it's a corporation, right? Like these are their standards. So it's pretty, that's my one plug for that, is just for basic obedience. I would not say in terms of like changing behavior modification or more intensive training that works, but for anybody who just wants really easy basic obedience training classes like Petco and PetSmart, you can't go wrong because again, they have standards that they have to meet and all of them use positive reinforcement for their obedience training.
I remember I tried to walk my dog off the leash so many times, and just next thing you know, he's walking with that family, you know, and he's no longer with me. He's hanging out with them now, and they're going the opposite directions. It is a process.
He's a
Alright.
social walker.
Let's get into the budget. What do you got for us, Sarah?
All right, so commissioners should have a budget amendment, a staff report in their packet. What we are looking at today is, you know, and we've been consistently talking about this all year, right? We have talked about the increase in our intake. We planned for an increase in our budget. We did not plan for this level of an increase in our budget. I will also say there are two additional factors to this. We got hit very early on, both with that cockfighting case and another large bill that was having to do with investigations right away. So that was $28,000 right off the bat of all of our medical. We've also seen a 43% increase from our emergency veterinary providers, and that is because we are having to use more expensive providers because the ones that are less expensive don't always have vets on for emergencies, and so we can't send animals to them. So unfortunately, we're having to go to providers that charge more and don't offer discounts. And so we have seen an increase in those emergency costs. And a lot of those are emergency after hours that include our fosters. So those are two really significant ones right there. Then you see the total live intake increase of almost 60%. Factor all of that in, we're sitting okay. So like we're sitting at about 48% of our entire budget. The issue again has become, we normally bank on lower animals at the beginning of the year and under using those medical funds that then get flexed in the summer and then decrease. So if we continue to operate where we are going, we're actually going to run out of our medical expenditures, not the rest of the budget, but we will run out of our veterinary care expenditures before the end of the year. And so staff is requesting that JASCOM approve a budget amendment of $80,000, which will basically, as we kind of projected through percentages and what we're anticipating the intake to look like for the rest of the year, as well as veterinary services, we believe that $80,000 should cover the additional costs for the rest of the year. This money now would not be at a cost to the jurisdictions. This would come out of our veterinary reserves that have been dedicated specifically to veterinary care.
What is our level for veterinary reserves right now? I don't remember.
I know it's over 500,000. I cannot give you specifics because we're still actually looking at all those. It's that time of year where we're actually sifting through all of that. So I can give you a more firm number of where we're sitting next meeting. But I can tell you for sure, we have at least $500,000 sitting in our medical reserves.
You just want to highlight though that too, that part of that medical reserve fund is part of the budgeting process that we've already mapped out for a couple of years. And so certainly we want to take into account kind of what we plan for vet services and reducing reliance on reserves. And Sarah will be able to provide much more detail as we start talking about our budget at the next meeting.
Yeah, I remember it was about 3 to 4 meetings ago, we talked about, you know, weaning ourselves off of reserves and moving on to more contract work and
Correct.
revenue. And then you brought in a substantial chunk of change.
Yes, we had several bequests. I did not bring in anything. I appreciate the credit. But we had several substantial bequests this year. At around $1.5 million in total in bequests. So there is that. Some of those bequests have been like asked like by the person giving the money that they go towards capital. But that is something that JASCOM can also look at, as JASCOM's prerogative is to kind of allocate where some of those monies sit as far as our reserves.
I don't remember them all being earmarked, so.
We can have that report as well as part of the budget discussion. But yeah, as a reminder, JASCOM agreed when we added the veterinary department 2 years ago. We did a hold 1 year because we did not hire a vet, so we kept it at full amount, but we had agreed that over the course of 4 years, we would reduce our reliance on our veterinary reserves to for the jurisdictions to take on full true cost of that service. But it was a way we could add a much needed service without it directly impacting such a significant amount all at one time.
And the numbers spiked.
Correct, and then the numbers spiked.
No, I mean, the amount of spay and neuter that were produced out of that effort went way up.
Correct,
And we were incredibly more efficient because of it.
correct.
We'll highlight though, I think what Sarah was getting at, and I think you bring up a really good point of all of the positive benefits of
That's right.
having those dollars, but also just to recognize that that means as we enter into the budget season and we start looking at the budget, we will be reducing the amount of reserves that are used, which
Yeah.
will increase assessments. And then also just realizing that, you know, as we plan for 2026, we have to take into account that we are seeing rising levels of animal medical care, inflation of the cost of just medic supplies and also access to medicine. So there could be increases there as well in the 2026 budget.
Yeah, I was looking at this and I was thinking maybe our assessment increase percentage could be around 3 to 5.
Oh,
We will bring some
We will
numbers
bring
before
that up.
just at the next meeting.
I'm sorry if we're fishing, but yeah.
I will have more concrete numbers for you.
Okay.
We did do some projections at the last budget meeting last year. I know that was a long time ago. But we did have some budget projections then. But it's definitely as we reduce our reliance off of reserves on top of regular COLA and other increases, we are definitely looking at more than the percentage
Okay.
you suggest.
So the last time I briefed council on this, and you know, it really covered how the budget's changed, how we're not gonna be relying on reserves, how everybody's actually gonna pay their fair share. And I didn't get shock and awe. I think our council received it pretty well. I don't know about the other jurisdictions, how they received it. I was actually, honestly, I was kind of concerned about the county, if I'm being honest, right? And so you guys wanna, do you remember that, like, when we,
The conversation earlier this year?
yeah, where we talked about, you know, hey, we're not gonna be relying on reserves. I think it was
Yeah,
last budget season.
yeah, I
and
remember that.
How our assessments and what the actual amount that we should be paying versus the amount that we are discounted, how that discount was gonna be removed. I went through the whole thing with Lacey City Council and nobody was shocked or surprised. So
We-
we're good over here.
We got to a point where we were good moving forward with the proposed changes based on the rationale and the history behind it. So we got to that point, after a bit of discussion. So moving forward, I don't know how those conversations will go, but we did get to a point where because the rationale was provided a while back and we were able to provide that memorandum, and I appreciate Sarah and the team for getting me the information I needed for those discussions, but yeah, we did have a couple of bumps in the road, but we got to a point where we were okay with it.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
Yeah, I know that surviving off our reserves just is not sustainable.
right, yeah.
And I do understand that everybody is in budgetary constraints coming into the 2026 year, but again, from a fiscal responsibility, we can't continually rely on reserves that are meant to be there for in case of emergency, for large scale cruelty intake. Like that's really what those reserves are supposed to be there for, are in case of emergency, right? And we consistently use them year over year instead. And so being able to kind of move away from that would be more fiscally responsible in the long run in case, for example, we had that money during COVID and we were able to reduce everybody's assessment during COVID because everything was so financially up in the air. Those are those are what we would consider emergencies,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, well, that being said, go ahead.
Hi. As part of the discussions last year, did you provide or could you provide possibly during this budget season, like I hear and I believe it to be true that veterinary care is harder to find, more expensive, there's fewer emergency options. Do we have any data around that so that if we have to go back to our jurisdictions and say, hey, this is what it takes to, you've gotten the vet in-house, like Joint Animal Services has made efforts to control the cost as much as possible, but here's the reality of the costs of these things plus the increase in
That one,
You got that heat map of discount services.
I have, those were all low cost services and not
right.
full cost.
But that could be a starting point.
And I don't expect you would be able to get that data. I'm wondering if it exists somewhere, like is there
I don't genuinely know.
Staffing report though, like.
We can dig around, but I don't know if there's been anything recent. The issue becomes a lot of these studies were still done mid-pandemic. And everything has changed. Like mid-pandemic is when all the corporations bought up all the veterinary clinics and hiked up prices. On top of already seeing the veterinary crisis happen during COVID where people were leaving in droves. I mean, there are studies out there, it won't necessarily impact locally, but there are studies out there showing that like the lack of access to care has thrown animal welfare back 40+ years. It's going to take at least 10 years for veterinary schools to recover, to actually like put the amount of veterinarians and LVTs back into the workforce because of how many left. Those are studies we can refer to, but local ones might be a little bit different. And pricing is also so subjective because they're literally, unless they're owned by the same corporation, they're going to vary per clinic. I can tell you at a bare minimum, for example, minimum spay is $600 minimum.
I think anywhere from, I think 465 to 540 minimum,
Those are small.
yeah. But I've seen it, as high as 900 and yeah. And part of it is too like our prices for the things that we buy has gone way up, like surgical, gloves, gowns, syringes, medications is all skyrocketed. And so I think the veterinary corporations have increased their markup pretty high to account for the increase in materials and medications and stuff. And then, keep the people employed and keep your vet team together. If the pay has gone up, benefits have gone up, and they have to account for all that.
Councilmember, would it help? I hear what, kind of, hey, we can't maybe get the full story, but would it help maybe to provide some examples of costs increasing between the years to just show kind of like one-off, like, let's say a routine surgery, like a spay or neuter in 2024 versus 2025, would that help?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that would help. I think, like I say, I think we all hear it anecdotally, we all hear it, or we all have experiences with it. I was just talking with a constituent the other day that they're like, now I have to pay a $75 deposit at my vet to make an appointment. And these things, like, so that's just all real. And I just think seeing some of those numbers as we have to have conversations around the realities of what it's gonna take to, fund continued service, which I think helps.
Do vets actually publish their fee schedule?
No. We do have some probably example invoices
Every
that we
once in a
could pull from to help at least provide some kind of generalities. Let us take a look at what we can find and come back to this group as we're talking
Yeah,
about.
I can't make any promises until I look and see what we have.
Okay. And I don't want it to become like a referendum
Yeah.
on the industry, like this isn't,
No, but I mean, you're
let's
not
be real
wrong.
about what it.
One of our own city employees I was having a conversation with, and her dog was having a dental and they wanted her to pay for all the maybe extractions up front. And it was like, what? And some of it, the argument being that they didn't wanna have to call and ask for permission, cause normally what it would go, you'd build an estimate, right? It's from this to this, and then they call and say, hey, it looks like we're gonna have to pull X number of teeth, it's gonna cost this. They wanted everything up front, and then they'd refund you what they didn't pull.
How many teeth they left in.
Yeah, no.
So, I mean, it's definitely getting, and even during parts of the pandemic, people were waiting 12 hours to get into the emergency room and would have to make a $3,000 deposit to sit in the parking lot for 12 hours. So
Well, and I
things
guess
are
really-
better, but things have also changed too.
And I feel like, I guess part of it for me is really big picture. I worry about as the realities of the costs become clear, the need for your services goes up as people are like, I cannot afford to
Yeah.
care for my animal.
No, and you're not wrong.
Oh, and the
Um,
lack of a local, low-cost spay and neuter clinic for the 5 surrounding counties is a big impact too.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. It impacts the cost of veterinary care, lack of pet inclusive housing, like all of that contributes to what's going on. And that's not even including any economic factors, right? Like we have some looming economic factors on top of the fact that people are like, well, the only housing I can find, my dog doesn't fit those parameters. And so where is it supposed to go? I really love my dog, but the vet just quoted me $2,000. I don't have it. They're telling me I have to have it. This is that discernment a little bit, like they're expecting the experts to tell them what they need, and they do, and most vets do, but it's, people are like, well, I want what's best for my pet. I'm obviously not it since I can't afford it. And they're making decisions that way too. And so I do think we're starting to see it. There's other impacts that haven't necessarily impacted this area yet that we still might see. There has been in a lot of other states, a lot of impact to abandoned animals left behind during some of the raids that are happening. And shelters are having to pick up animals that have been abandoned in homes because they're being left behind.
Okay, would anybody? Budget amendment, so I would move that we amend the budget of $80,000 supplement the 2025 veterinary services. These dollars coming from reserves.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing no, actually I have one, do have one. So next time we come, which is gonna be 60 days from now,
October, yes.
October, and then we'll get to see a breakdown of the.
You'll have the full budget presentation in October.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. We have amended the budget for $80,000. The next item on our agenda, I believe, should be the director's report. Sarah.
All right. So we did have a fantastic adoption event in July where we adopted out a total of 76 animals. 55 cats, 21 dogs. That was for a single week. That was a waive fee event sponsored by Best Friends Animal Society. That's Monica. That's with our volunteer Max.
I think so.
Yes. Posing in this was our adoption booth, so a successful, he's just hanging out with Monica, having a great old time.
A group of volunteers constructed that booth too. So we have a permanent, well, not permanent, but we have a booth that we can break down and build back up. It was donated
Decorate.
by volunteers.
Decorate depending on the theme.
Mm-hmm.
We do already have our next adoption event scheduled, which is August 26th through August 29th. We had a compassion cultivation workshop with our entire team. We had the team of Hatching come to host a Moss Compassion workshop. And it's dedicated to people in compassionate positions. The founders of this group were originally worked in animal shelters as well. So they are understanding of the unique needs of our team. And it was a 3-hour workshop to help us build resilience, to have tools, to practice mindfulness and emotional regulation, and to help us remember why we started to work in animal welfare. And so the entire team got that. We broke it up into 2 parts. So that way the shelter was still running, while half the team was in the workshop, and then they switched. And so it was a nice reminder to sit down, be creative with our team. We, part of the compassion cultivation is we were given gratitude thank you cards that we could color in and fill in ourselves to give to somebody that we wanted to acknowledge our gratitude towards them for what they do.
Are you saying you went to?
I did go. I went to both.
Nice. Were volunteers welcome?
We did invite volunteers. We only had one take us up. We did have limited space. But that volunteer works with our champion dog program and is also one of our cruelty volunteers. So she got a lot out of it. What's really great about this compassion workshop is then Hatching actually has a grant currently right now with Maddie's fund. And so because we participated in this, we can then register for an 8-week online course that continues this work. So we can work better and live better is the theme of that. So this was the groundwork, and then we'll continue on over the next 8 weeks in the fall. Once we registered, we can watch live, and they're also recorded, so we can kind of continue on what we built. It's a new way to look at, instead of some of the old-fashioned compassion fatigue or burnout workshops, where they spend most of the time telling you all the symptoms of burnout, and you're like, yeah, I already know. Tell me what I gotta do. It was remembering why we were here, that compassion can actually fill us, not drain us when it's done appropriately. And how we can support each other. And so it was a lot of fun.
How's compassion?
Mhm.
This is just kind of screaming something that Sarah brought back from a conference.
I have known Jose, the founder, for probably 10 years.
Good.
We both worked in Arizona. He was in Tucson. At one point, he was running Pima Animal Care and Control. He started when he was 18 as a euthanasia tech at a shelter that took in over 20,000 animals and probably euthanized at least half. So he started out as a euthanasia tech and worked his way up to being the director of the facility before he left for a national position for several years. And then during COVID, he developed his own consulting firm that specializes in working with animal welfare groups, because we've all found it's such a niche field that when we do bring in consultants, I spend half the time explaining things to said consultant, or horrifying said consultant with our own trauma. And so, you know, a lot of this is talking about our, you know, our secondary trauma and the actual trauma that we incur every single day and how to handle those stressors in healthy ways. And so, again, like I said, a lot of times when we bring people in, they aren't expecting some of the stories that we have to tell. And so this is so much more worthwhile because he knows from his own experience what we go through every day. And so there's not that hour or two of like, catch me up on everything that you experience and explaining things before I can help you. He already knows, he's already been there, and gives you real working tools that can help.
Is this like the first wellness event of the year, or you wanna call it that? I'd like to call it that.
And this is probably our one group workshop this year, and we chose to focus on everybody's mental health and well-being rather than just a general training.
Good,
I personally got a lot out of it.
very cool. Okay.
He also does service and do consultations for other nonprofits and other service industries. I know he's been doing a lot of hospice and social work kind of nonprofits as well. So
Inherently traumatic fields.
correct, inherently traumatic fields. I think he said that top fields for like trauma and burnout were Ebola, people who work within the foster care system, and animal welfare workers all have the same level of trauma and burnout. So we basically have the same level of trauma and burnout as somebody working on the front lines of Ebola. Like those are from actual studies that have shown that level of burnout. So puts it in perspective,
Very nice.
just a little bit.
Oh, wait, sorry, was that on site? Was that on site or off site?
Yes, that was on site. It was easier for us to split it into two groups and have it be on site. That's our tiny conference room that we maxed out at 12 people in there. We even ran out of chairs. They're sitting on a bench. So. Sierra and I participated in a new study that's being done by Colorado State University. They last year did a study just within the state regarding, they're focusing on successful investigation and prosecution of animal cases. What makes them successful? What does that look like? What is supporting that? And so they have now broadened this to a national study. And so we participated in this study. They should have the results hopefully next year. And with the results of that, we'll actually create a national task force to address where they've seen, basically as a way to help other places of maybe of like what they find difficult, they can partner with those that have had success, and what does that look like between relationships with your DPAs, animal cruelty laws, investigations, what those experiences are. And so, yeah, we'll have the results of that study. We're very excited. I'm glad that they're shining light on this because there is a difference, right? You have to have a prosecuting attorney who wants to address these issues. You have to have animal control and law enforcement who wants to address these issues. You have to have a state legislature who wants to address these issues, and they all work in tandem. And so what does that successful model look like?
Do we have that? Is Thunheim in 100% with us?
We have one of his deputy prosecuting attorneys, who we've had 2 in a row now. One left, one has come on, that have really made it. Like, they're not assigned, but they have literally said like, I will take these cases, because otherwise the consistency and the learning curve isn't there, because again, it's so niche. Learning what best practices are, and it takes time to get those down. And so it is very important to have somebody who's willing to be that person. Because when they're spread out across the board, you're gonna have very inconsistent trials, very inconsistent asks, very inconsistent sentencing.
Sure.
That being said, we do have full support of
Yeah.
the prosecutor's office. I've
Sounds like
spoken to a few of their senior DPAs and yeah, they're like, I don't care what anybody says, we work with animal services, you know, we do this together, like, so I feel very strongly about that.
Officers Robinson and Northrop completed their this is their final module, so they are officially certified animal cruelty investigators with code 3. So that's very exciting. Both Caitlin and Kate are also our senior officers that have been with Joint Animal Services the longest.
So they're now field officers?
No, they've always been, but they're actually certified animal cruelty investigators, like they
Okay.
have a certificate. These modules are 40 hours apiece and they have to complete all 3. So it's very intensive training.
Yeah, I think hopefully by next year, all officers will have received that certification. I'm really trying, so the last module's in person, really trying to push them to come to Seattle, so we'll see if we get that.
Like Washington would make an excellent location.
Yeah.
We did our second round of recruitment for our animal cruelty and response volunteer and foster program. So that is the creation of these ladies minus Megan, who's not here today. You guys had several applicants that you're going through.
So we are scheduled to meet tomorrow to review all the applicants. Do you know what the number is?
No, it's upwards of 20.
Yeah.
Wow, great.
Everybody, just as a reminder, they have a full background check in order to participate in this program. And they go through their own intensive training. There's an 8-hour training. They go on ride-alongs, and then they also participate in additional trainings along. Professional development and continuing education. So Officer Ferris actually did the online ACO summit that was hosted by the Pacific region of Best Friends Animal Society to learn best practices and networking. And I believe she won a scanner.
She did. She won a microchip scanner.
Hey. Can't go wrong with getting as many microchip scanners as possible because they break really easy. They also, Officers Robinson, Olson, and Ferris participated in a webinar led by Dr. Jason Bird on forensic science at crime scenes. And then we are fully staffed. We hired, our last open position was our animal care tech position. And so Brooke joined the team this month. We're very excited to have her. She has a background in biology.
And wildlife biology, yeah.
And she eventually wants to be a wildlife game warden. So lots of interesting things she's had to study. It was a great interview where I asked lots of questions that didn't have anything to do with her work. Because I was like, tell me more. How do you?
But do you draw blood on a fish?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, I was like, please tell me, where do you draw blood on a fish? Like, this is fascinating. Can we get a diagram? Can you show me?
What a skill set to have on board too.
Needless to say, needles did not upset her, which is great news. But she's a great addition to the team, very positive, hard worker, picking up on things very quickly, which is great news because our animal care team has been short-staffed for quite a bit now, and that always adds to the stress during this time of year. Sierra met with our new DPA, who's also named Sierra.
Sierra squared.
Because it's not confusing at all having a Sarah and Sierra, we've now added a second Sierra into the mix. And so I'll let you talk about meeting with Sierra. You guys are meeting pretty regularly.
Yeah, probably against her will a little bit. Yeah, so Sierra she is originally from Oregon and then she spent some time somewhere in the South and I don't remember where.
Missouri?
That sounds right, yeah. It's one of those states really hate to be an animal there. And then she recently moved back up to the PNW, so she's been with the office for maybe 2 months now, but yeah, she's really great. She's very dedicated. I actually met her. I was dropping off something for Rudy at the prosecutor's office and learned that Rudy was leaving us. And I was, oh my goodness, my heart is broken. And then Sierra popped over and she's like, I'm gonna do the animal crimes. I'm very, very excited. So I look forward to our working relationship together and I hope that she doesn't come to regret it with how often I am contacting her about cases. But yeah, I feel very appreciative of that and look forward to our Sierra squared relationship. Yes.
I always love seeing pictures of Callie.
Yep, just so everybody, Callie was one of our cruelty cases that we had a wonderful rescue group. Callie had a lot of behavior issues from the trauma that she experienced during her life and with the cruelty that we had her pulled from. And so we had a great rescue who took her knowing that she was going to probably be longer term with them because they needed to work with her and she's just doing phenomenal. Great little learner, loves
smart.
all of her training, loves hanging out with the other dogs.
His
and-
confidence is building every day.
Yep. So I would just like to throw her in every once in a while.
Just look at those ears.
Community engagement, we were out at 3 different events, so we had cards, not cars.
Cards and kids.
So sorry, guys. Correct, place me sometimes.
It's correct on the second line though.
Just, it is what it is. Nisqually Health Fair and the All-American Jubilee in Rainier.
Those were all this summer so far?
These were just in the last, pretty sure these were all in July,
July.
actually. And Officer Ferris went out with Megan, our volunteer coordinator for Cops, Cars and Kids. And I believe we had volunteers go out with Megan for both Nisqually Health Fair and All-American Jubilee. Sierra and I met with Mason County Board of County Commissioners, Mason County's Board of County Commissioners this morning. They have also given their full blessing for us to write up a full contract to begin that process of review between both legal entities. So hopefully, with the idea being that a contract is signed now, or I should say soon, right, this year, with the idea that services would start next year, once we have hired somebody, but get that contract up and running, signed for JASCOM's approval, for Mason County Board of County Commissioners approval, with the idea that we'll sign the contract, but not charge for services until we have hired somebody, aiming for that kind of January timeframe. If we can help it.
Very exciting.
So a draft contract will be coming back before JASCOM in the next couple of months for consideration and discussion.
In either the October or November meeting, hopefully.
Would we get a rep from Mason County on JASCOM?
No, because they're not part of our interlocal agreement.
Okay.
It's one of our contract partners. So it would be like we contract with them, but they don't have a seat.
Okay.
Tonight on Nisqually,
We don't contract with Tenino.
we did the $8,000,
That was Bucoda.
that was Dakota.
One and the same.
There's a difference. There's population difference.
I didn't pay any.
Like 600 versus 2,500. Much larger service.
Yeah.
Spay neuter access, so just for a brief update for you guys, there are actually a couple of organizations that are potentially interested in opening up low-cost clinics in Thurston County. So when I know more, I will continue to keep you guys updated. It was rather serendipitous and perhaps we put it out into the universe talking about it, because literally within like a few weeks of us talking about it, we had an organization reaching out saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this. So it's really going to depend on if they can find a space, what that looks like, things like that. But there is potential, hopefully within the next year or less, that there would actually be a low-cost spay neuter clinic in Thurston County. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. We've been talking about this.
And what's really great about this is then that clinic, almost like how we were handing out vouchers, they would become that resource now. Like we would halt handing out vouchers as a whole. Because those funds that were normally, like, we were the administrator for those funds for different other organizations, those organizations could actually give that money to the clinic directly to do that. And that's one less thing that we have to do at the first of the month. Less administrative work for us, but then it's also centralizing those services to one location and not sparsing it out to many.
And they are certain that they want Thurston County for this.
Correct. They, the organization has provided services in Thurston County. And so they directly know that there is a need.
Sarah, you said they need to find space. Is there anything the cities or the county could do to help them?
They are looking for 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. It can be within a, shopping center, it can be a standalone building. It really needs to have great traffic flow and lots of parking. Obviously utility hookups, things like that. It can be larger than that because they, want to put offices and things like that and be able to work the inside how they want. So, hear of any of those spaces. I'm more than happy to pass those along.
We do have a few empty spaces in the city.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know they would like to be centrally located, but it's also gonna be like where they can, one, get the most bang for their buck, right? And I know size, but also the parking, that's huge, for those types of organizations, and to provide that service, you need a lot of parking and a well thought out parking lot. So, like, you don't necessarily want to be in the Trader Joe's parking lot, right?
Right.
I mean, yes, but also no, because notoriously, no matter what Trader Joe's I go to, I'm always like,
Who's scouting for them?
they do have their own realtor that's been scouting, but again, they're out of county, so they're also always open to suggestions.
Gotcha.
Which is why they let me know since I'm here. So as I drive by, I'm like, ooh, ooh.
Right on.
Yeah, Joey. Also.
Mhm.
Let them know.
We also, I mean, Becca's here.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know you'd
So-
be talking about this.
We're launching a new dog enrichment program that's going to be entirely volunteer-led. But before we could enact that, it actually had to be created. And so Becca took charge of this and scoured other organizations that had behavior enrichment programs, what it did look like, did they have SOPs? And she got a bunch of really great stuff, compiled it all together. Her and Megan did a load of recruitment to the volunteers. There's even, the staff made sure there's a designated spot even. So now in the same room that we have our groom tub, there's a whole area designated to behavior enrichment that has all the supplies. It has a little smaller refrigerator to store some of these things to be kept. There's all sorts of ideas that they can do. And they recruited 24
24?
of our current volunteers who were interested in becoming a behavior enrichment volunteer. So I will let you talk about this a little bit.
Over the last couple of months, in the little spare time that we as an organization has had, I've drafted and compiled a 34-page dog enrichment manual for our volunteers to be able to reference, giving instruction on how to stuff Kongs in an appropriate way that is safe for the dogs and easy to clean, what popsicles are and how to appropriately make them, and why enrichment is so important. What we have been seeing when it comes to our euthanasia decisions on our dogs is that there are a lot of different factors that contribute to that decision, but one of the ones that contributes a lot is kennel stress. And we didn't have a robust way to keep them entertained and mentally stimulated in their kennel. And our dogs are in their kennels for 23 hours out of the day. So the heart and soul of this dog enrichment program is trying to prevent kennel stress, enrich their mental health, and to have it be volunteer ran, because our staff works very hard. I think given that this is specifically for the dog's mental health and there's a lot of fun in stuffing Kongs, and making snuffle mats and all of that, there's a lot of volunteer interest, because it does make a direct impact. And I think it's also a great way for volunteers who maybe don't want to directly handle the dogs. A lot of our dogs are large dogs that may be difficult to walk on leash. They may not have the mobility to do that, but they want to help the dogs. And so we've had laundry volunteers sign up for the orientation. We've had cat room volunteers. There's a lot of variety in the volunteers that have shown interest. So that is coming. Our orientation is in September, and I'm really hoping that, you know, I know that we are going to see a very big impact from this program. So we're very excited. It's been my baby. So I'm very excited it's nearly here.
So you're almost done writing it?
She's done writing it. She recruited and she's gonna train everybody in a couple of weeks. And then it'll be up and running. They'll have schedules, the whole thing. Like, so that hopefully we're actually scheduling volunteers to be there on a regular basis to make as well as hand out.
So this is something for our location specifically.
Yeah.
And just the whole design is to reduce kennel stress. Okay.
And give them more agency in their day-to-day life. They don't have a lot of choices, you
Right.
know? And so they get options. They get to choose what to engage with. They get to choose if they're going to engage with their Kong. There's a period of time in the day where we're spraying different scents in the kennels so that they have a new smell that they get to interact with. And we change the sound that's playing so that they can listen to different things instead of just the swamp coolers going.
Even if you really don't like reggae, like
The dogs are listening to reggae on
Reggae?
Sundays, so yeah. So it gives them more agency in their day-to-day life, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
Throw in some Mozambique, some Calypso.
Yeah.
There's pre-open music and then like
Gosh, wouldn't that
open
be
hours
fun?
music.
Have like a radio station controlled by dog buttons.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
really, yeah.
Yep,
Great for social media.
our like neonate kitten nursing mom area, they have the kitty TV playing a lot with like their own special music and videos going right now too.
The next step is a cat enrichment program being
Okay.
built. But we're gonna launch this first and then we'll get to the cat enrichment program.
And last but not least, Happy Tales. This was, so Gerald had a couple of iterations with us. He was first a Beatles song, Help, I Need Somebody. Then he became Gerald. Then he became Leonard when he got adopted. And
I mean, I like have a stage name and a.
you know, sometimes, yes, but sometimes we change it up. If a dog's been with us for a little bit, or sometimes a dog has been adopted and returned, we go ahead and keep that name. It gets all tracked in the system.
Oh,
We call it a
okay.
rebrand.
It's, yeah,
Okay.
Mhm.
it's a nice rebrand. But Leonard over here was actually adopted by one of our volunteers who took him home for the weekend as part of our Weekend Warrior program so that he could have a break. Fell in love. And then he stayed. I mean, as you can tell, he doesn't look comfortable at all in this house. And so that was our happy tale for this. Technically, I was going to use our foster turned fundraiser story, but then Becca was coming and I was like, well, I'm not gonna steal that happy tale. But yeah, so that's
Supposed to
another
be the
successful
kennel break.
adoption.
Great. Yes. Okay, well, it looks like we've reached the end of our agenda. Commissioner Klaus.
I saw a picture of Pongo earlier, very briefly on the screen. Where is Pongo? Has he been adopted?
He's been adopted. He's living on a farm.
Oh,
He's got
okay.
acreage to run around. It was the neighbor of the foster home that took him home too. So they got to meet him a few times. They decided, they had to decide if it was a good fit. They were really diligent about their decision. So
Awesome.
it was meant to be.
And I
think.
loved him, I took him home a few times. What was crazy is like the following Monday, a dog came in named Pongo under bike quarantine. Oh, my heart sank. I was like, no. And too, but and I'm like, oh, completely different animal. Pongo's living his best life, not biting people.
Not biting
So.
people.
Good. I love him.
And that is when name confusion starts happening, really. It's not ours, is it?
Yeah, seeing you in the hallway. Did you see?
That's the word. I was like, I might need to go check myself into a hospital.
Well, I want to commend you on creating this program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would also like to add that in addition to everything that Becca does for the shelter, she also was voted on to be the committee admin for the Washington State Animal Fighting Task Force.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very honored. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
And you for creating wellness programs and bringing it into the shelter for the wellness of your staff. So that's very commendable.
Thank you so much.
We gotta keep them healthy.
Come on. So if there isn't anything further from the rest of our group, seeing none, then I will call this meeting adjourned.